Welcome into another episode of the Young Dad Podcast. I'm your host, Jay. Super excited to be with you as we embark on our second 100 batch of episodes. This is total episode 101. Very excited to be with you guys once again here on the show. What a wild and crazy ride it's been. I'm really excited. So I actually fired the live studio audience for today since they decided not to show up to work, but that's okay. I'm joined by a friend of mine. I'm joined by Mr. Matt. Matt is the host of Mr. Matt Storytime. You may have heard of it. It's a great little series for kids with stories that he's created about his main character, Bubba, and all the fun, amazing things that he gets to do. It's a great listen while you're in the car with kids, while you're out and about with your kids. If you just need a story to fill the time, it's great for bedtime and really any time in between. So I'm super excited to host Matt today. Matt's a father, of course. I don't think he would write children's books if he wasn't, but who knows? To each their own. But Matt, thanks so much for being here today. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about you. Tell us about the podcast. Tell us about Bubba, and really anything else you want to tell us about you.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here, Jay. Thanks for having me. So I'm a normal dad, right? Became a dad 5+ years ago to my son, Bubba. Bubba, of course, is not his real name, but that's what we call him. It's just a nickname. And where the podcast came from was just a simple idea of falling asleep at night, and he liked to listen to stories or music or white noise or whatever it was. So I would just hand him my phone and say, "Here you go, buddy, find what you want." And he found stories, and I thought to myself, I can do that. Like, if somebody's going to read to my kid at night, why not be me, right? I mean, obviously reading in books, but after I leave the room, if he wants to continue on and I need to get on with my night, I can put the podcast on for him. It really started to be just as simple as that, and I had no intention, absolutely none, of growing it or thinking anybody else would be interested in hearing me talk. So I just watched the numbers tick up and up and up after publishing a couple episodes, which I was just doing, like picking out books from the library, right, bringing them home, and then it got to a point where I'm like, all right, I've got actually some people here who are interested. Let me just start writing my own stuff. And so that's kind of where it evolved to in the summer of 2022. And then I've been writing Bubba stories since then, with kids writing in all over the world, which is really cool. Primarily English speaking languages or English speaking countries. But yeah, I've got listeners really from everywhere. Main contingency is within the U.S. and then Australia, the U.K., Canada. I mean, it's really cool. And then hearing how my stories can have an impact on kids around the world, focusing on early childhood literacy and the importance of reading and how that fosters such a wonderful skill set that you can use in life to think through things critically, to use your imagination, to just be an individual, is something that is very near and dear to my heart. And that was one of the reasons why I just continue on long past when my kids are less than excited when a new Bubba story comes out, just because they hear me all the time, right? And so now I'm on episode 60 something, and that they still like to listen when, like, me and my wife have date nights. So just last night, actually, we were going out and Bubba started crying because he didn't want us to leave, and he's 5 now, and the babysitter was there and BB was there, and he made sure to say, I want to listen to Bubba stories. So we put that on for him, and then we headed out the door. So they still listen. It's just a little bit different now. I think it's really cool to have this, just because not only for the global impact, but also just my own personal impact, where it's filling a need that I didn't know I had to be creative, as well as now, assuming that the files don't get corrupted somewhere down the line, my voice is out there for my future generations, not only my kids, maybe their kids and their kids' kids, to hear what I sounded like and just keep that connection going. So it's been fun. It's
100%.
been fun. I really, really loved it.
That's awesome. And does he realize that the stories are like he's Bubba in some aspects? Does he realize that at all, or has he put that together?
He does. Yeah, he's figured it out. Um, Recently, I guess within the past 6 months or so, I have incorporated him into the episodes, and he'll, when he wants to, right? I don't want to make it not fun for him, but if I've got stories that have Bubba dialogue, I'll ask him to join me in the recording. And his favorite part is not so much the recording part, which he doesn't mind doing. It's the part afterwards because of the software that I use. It's like a voice modulator. I can change how things sound. And so in editing, he's always looking forward to making it sound silly. So I say, buddy, I got to edit right now. He says, okay, but let me know when I can make it silly. You got it.
I
So
love that.
getting him involved too has been awesome because now he likes to write his own stories. He just records his he records on the iPad and just uses his creative thinking to create things as he goes. He also writes stuff down. He'll ask how to spell things, and we'll help him out, and he'll illustrate. And it's just seeing that grow within him too is having a direct impact. And um, hopefully, my daughter picks it up too. But she's a little young. She's almost 3.
I love that. So you have a 5 and a 3, almost 6. That's
5
pretty
and she.
solid.
So her birthday is in March. Yeah, so she's 2 still.
Okay.
But yeah, he's
Okay,
five,
gotcha.
5 and 2.
Gotcha. Pretty solid age gap. I think that's pretty close to what mine are. My older one turned 7 this year. My younger one will turn 4 later this year. So, um,
Yeah,
that's
good gap.
a good gap. I like that gap because one was almost out of diapers or completely out of diapers when the next one came into the picture. So that's the kind of age
Yeah,
gap I promote. I love that age gap when asked, but I really like what you said about the creativity part there because for me, that's what a lot of this was. It was feeling that need to be creative. I love creating. I always like being a writer. I always like writing and getting out written word and writing about random different topics, whatever it might be. Mostly sports is kind of where it all kind of birthed from, was sport. And then it
mm-hmm.
turned into, well, everyone else is doing videos. No one's really watching. No one's really reading anymore. So let me start doing video and audio. And then I got really comfortable with that because it was really difficult at first for me. Being in front of a camera because my teeth weren't fixed all the way yet. I was still in like retainers, Invisalign. I have a slight speech impediment. I'm not the prettiest face out there. I don't have a deep, sultry voice or anything like that. So I was just like, well, let me just put myself in front of a camera and see what happens. And then it kind of just snowballed from there. And then this need for fatherhood and to talk about it was nothing I ever saw myself doing. Nothing. I always just thought I'm a sports guy and I will always just be a sports guy. I will help oversaturate the sports market with ridiculous takes or fun, dumb baseball content or whatever. Um, and then this idea kind of just happened one day. It was just like, okay, let's. My brother and I kind of just brainchild. It was after my divorce. I finally had a good place, and kind of that summer of 2022, same here for us, is when it really just sparked and ignited, and uh, the flame started going. So now we're 100 total episodes in. By the time the people listen to this one and they see the number, I'll have gone and undertaken the labor of love to go and back and number every single episode in order. So I will be undertaking that labor of love in the time span between when we're recording and when this actually comes out. But no, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
And it's kind of like the fatherhood journey itself, is you never know what to expect. You can never expect what to expect. And I think for you, especially having a son and then a daughter, what's kind of been some of those big real world differences, like holy crap, this is different. I didn't expect this, or I did expect this versus not this. So what have been some of those unexpected and expected moments?
Yeah. So the first kid is kind of like your guys are learning together. So I'm teaching him, he's teaching me, just learning how to be a dad, right? Um, and everything is new with him. So he's kind. I mean, he don't want to say he's an experiment, but like you know what I mean. You kind
I
of
mean,
figure it out as
kind
you
of are.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then my daughter comes along. We kind of already know what worked, what didn't work with him, and so we try to apply the same principles. But then you get reality slapping you in the face and say, no, it's not going to be that easy. They're different people, right? So it's trying to now navigate it again, but you've got a like stronger footing within the parenthood game for the second child. I will also say too that I can absolutely see them have different personalities. Very early on, he is very very cautious. Like he doesn't want to take any risks. Like he's nervous to ride his bike with training wheels. Like he won't do it. Scooters, nope. He could fall and get hurt. Um, but she is just a little daredevil. She's like jumping off of stuff, and she climbed stairs way earlier than he did. Um, so it's navigating that too. That it's not even a gender thing. I don't think it's just they're just different humans. So I can't expect them to have the same lives. I got to approach each of them and keep in mind too that they are different people. They're full-fledged humans, and so it's learning them as people, um, and just trying to learn together and find what works. It's tough, but it's fun. It's challenging.
It's super challenging, but it's also really fun. I think I've really started to notice it more and more since I've been with my now fiance. She's not the mother of my children. Um, and she's mentioned that my older one looks like me, acts like me in some ways, but not a lot. Like we share some of the same senses of humor, more or less, but she's a bit more sensitive than I am,
Okay.
by a lot. And so her emotions are kind of all over the place, very more so like she looks like me, acts quite a bit more like her mother. However, you take my little one, my 3-year-old, she looks like me a little bit. She's still my kid through and through. But she acts like me more, where she'll make the poop jokes or just randomly fart or do the do the crazy silly like impulsive things where the other one's a bit more cautious and won't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so it's a lot more fun to see that in that like light where it's like, okay, she just looks like me, doesn't really act like me. This one acts just way more like me, so I know what to expect from her, kind of thing. And I
Yeah.
can't get mad because when now that I see it through that like lens, I'm like, oh, I would totally probably do the exact same thing. That's
No,
100% me. She's right here next to me. She's waving at you, by the way, even though you can't see her. I try not to let them
that's
come on
okay.
camera. Yeah, but um, for you guys, what was it like? So, first question, I guess, to preface this: were you guys married? How long were you guys together before you guys had kids?
So we got married in 2015 at the end of the year, and then Bubba was born on July 4th of 2018.
Oh no way! My
So
oldest
we
is
were
July 3rd, 2017.
cool. So
That's
close.
cool. I know.
Yeah.
Uh, that's crazy. Okay, so you guys had a few years being married together before
Yep.
Bubba. Okay. So what was it like for you guys going from married, just you two, from no kids to one kid, and then a couple years later going from one kid to two kids? What have kind of those
Okay.
transitions been like for you guys?
So no kid to one kid. We had no idea what we were in for in terms of sleep. That was the biggest challenge for us, is figuring out how we were going to be able to get the requisite rest so that we could be good parents, right? And make sure that we were present and coherent for Bubba. That was the hardest thing. Like staying up, he for the first year of his life, he didn't sleep longer than like every 30 minutes he would wake up, like even in the middle of the night. It was rough for a year. But after that, we kind of, thankfully, he started sleeping through the night, and things kind of got back on track. We got into a rhythm. And then we moved to a bigger house, and that's when BB came along, and going from 1 to 2 um, was certainly a challenge too, because now it's like we have to play man. We can't just play. We can't double team. It's just now it's every person for themselves, and
Mm-hmm.
I got this one, you got that one, okay, and then we'll swap, and then the inter sibling dynamic has been a whirlwind, because they love each other fiercely. They're both empaths, and we know that. They feel deeply everything. We think that Bubba is highly sensitive, because he will react to things very, very strongly, and BB does too, to a degree. You can't discipline her at all before you can say it super nicely, and she'll still like get that face though, and she'll start crying, right? But it's between them that it has been the biggest challenge, is trying to keep them from hurting each other in between their hugs. They both like to scratch, and they both have war wounds um, on their faces from each other, because they love each other so much. And then it's like, okay, but you can't do that, and so I'll scratch you, and that's been a challenge. But I think we're hitting a stride.
I love that. No, normally around once they're about 2, 3 years old, and they're both a little bit older, they kind of figure it out. Now it's just gonna get more. It's either gonna be extreme, at least for me. It's been either extreme. They're either like getting along super super well, or they're at each other's throats.
Yeah,
Quite literally. There's very rarely is there an in between where they're like calmly like playing nicely together or doing something like really really nicely together. It's like, okay, we're good, we're level, and then before you know it, it's out of the park. It's no
yeah,
chance.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
Yeah,
that's
we've had a really smooth morning actually this morning. I don't know what I did, or it wasn't me at all, but they were playing nicely together for like an hour, and we made it until like, I looked at my watch, 10:20 before somebody cried. And even then it was because of an accident, right? And so then now they're downstairs, they're watching a movie while I'm talking with you. And so I know when they do that, they're sucked in, and they're um, playing nicely. So I
right.
somehow the peace has been kept today, and I'm very, very grateful.
Congratulations, congratulations. Mine
Thank you.
are currently on my bed with the dogs playing on. I have an old like Galaxy phone that I just have a bunch of
Okay.
games and stuff on. It doesn't have service or anything, but they're just playing on that and hanging out for now before one of them gets offended by the other one. So hopefully this lasts and holds. But the other one, the little one, has a TV show on. She has Bubble Guppies on in the living room for her, but she's in here, so she can't make up her
It
mind. But that's
tracks.
okay. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
normal day. So for you guys in your home, what does that kind of look like for you and your wife? What are some of the things that what does that shared responsibility look like for the household stuff versus like the kid stuff? Like who does what at any given time of day for the home and for the kids?
So she is the primary parent. They will come to her for everything first if she's available. And if I try to jump in and say, Daddy can do it too," um, they'll say, "No, I want mommy." So okay, so we're battling that. But in general, in terms of home upkeep, we share the load. There's a chore that she absolutely hates, and that's dishes. So I know that's my job. But pretty much everything else, if we see that it needs to be done, one of us will do it. My eyes aren't that good, and so I have to have glasses to see like fine detail. So that also means like I will walk past things that need to get picked up. I will miss the spot that needs to get cleaned, or if there's a smudge or something. Not to say that we live in a museum or anything, because absolutely we can't. We don't. We've got kids, right? Um, so she'll pick those up, and we want to be sure to. I want to be sure not to make it so that she feels like she's got to handle everything all the time, and that's a huge mental burden, right? So I'm working on getting better at that, but it's certainly an area that I can improve in. Um, so we're a team, and I have said um, since since we started dating, since we got married, that she's my life partner, and at the time that was a relatively new term for her, I guess, to describe heterosexual couples. But it's something that I truly believe in, that you're more than just my wife, my best friend. You're a partner, right? Everything that we do, we work together. We're a team, and so that's how we've been able to stay strong so long. Um, I previously was married and learned a lot from that, and so I've kind of applied it here, and it's paying off, I guess.
Most definitely. No, I love that aspect of it, and that's kind of where I've learned too from my first marriage was that it's to approach it with that team mindset. Like we're a team. That's how I approach it with my kids, since we do sports and things together. Where it's like good teammates do these things. Good teammates talk to each other. Good teammates communicate. Good teammates have each other's back.
Mm-hmm.
Good teammates help each other out. Good teammates are there for each other when the other one needs. Good teammates practice together. They play catch together. They talk. They do all these things. So really trying to take that teammate aspect of it, that team mindset into marriage can be super powerful because especially for men, because oh well, when I'm on a team, if I'm playing basketball with four other people, like I gotta make sure I can communicate, screens, cutters, all these things. We're always communicating, we're always talking. If I'm
Mm-hmm.
playing baseball and I'm a team, I'm gonna let the guy behind me know, hey, he's heavy on the slider right now. So watch for that. It's breaking outside kind of thing. I'm gonna know who my teammate is though, coming up after me, knowing that hey, that's not your pitch. Don't look for it. Stay on top. Stay back. Wait for this fastball. He threw me one on the third pitch. Like being able to communicate in the moment and relay those
Mm-hmm.
messages. So this that teammate mindset or that partner mindset. I know it's a weird term for a lot of heterosexual couples to use because we don't think of it like it's like oh we're husband wife boyfriend girlfriend like it's not a very common phrase for heterosexual couples, and that's okay. It's different for us to use those kind of phrases because we're not the ones that I guess adopted them in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
But it's super important to be a partner because any good partner is going to pick you up, be there, respond, help out, and do all the things that someone's going to be. And it's super important, especially with your partner, life partner, wife, whatever you refer to your partner as, to know like this person is was there before, they're here now, and they're also going to be there after. So making sure you place a ton of value and time into that relationship. I got into it, not got didn't get into it, but I got some weird looks a few days ago at lunch. A coworker of mine asked me um, like who do you put first, kind of thing. Uh, like just random, like oh well, I put my like the relationship I have with my fiance first, and then I put my kids as a very close second, and then I didn't want to give my real answer about like, oh, of course I'm gonna put because I'm religious, I'm Christian. I try not to get into too much on that on the podcast, but of course,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't answer like, oh, I put my God first, and then I put my partner, and then I put my kid, and then I put my my ministry, and then I put everything else kind of after that worked and things after that. Like that's kind of the order it falls for me personally. I didn't give that answer because that would have been a whole thing. He even asked me like if it's because of my religion. I was like, well, no, not really. Then I gave the answer like it is because that's what's taught in the Bible is to kind of order them in that way. But uh, it was like, well, she's gonna be here now, and she's gonna be there after. We're gonna do all these things together. Like I'm not gonna be able to get through life. This is one thing I didn't do in my previous marriage that I didn't do very well. Was putting that relationship and giving it enough time and value. So I learned from that. It's part of where it was coming from as well. But putting her as a priority with time and effort and everything. Because the kids I have right now, I only have them half the time. And so who's going to be there the other half? Well, my dogs, obviously, but then her. So I have to value and work on that relationship because it's just going to be her and I half the time until we have our own. And then the rest of that time after all the kids are grown is just going to be me and her working on that
Yep.
relationship, having that relationship and being able to maintain that and put time into it now only pays off later. But it also pays off in your parenting. If you're putting your kid before your partner, that means if your kids come to you and tell you something like, oh, she did this kind of thing, it's like, oh, okay, 100% got your bag. Let me go start a fight here. Versus if you know that she's the priority or they're the priority, whatever, um, that's who's first. Like, okay, well, let me go and talk to mom first. Let me go and ask her about this. Let me go and talk to
Mm-hmm.
her. Kids, it's hard to take. You can definitely, you want to trust and have your kids back. You want to believe them. You can definitely validate them in the moment. Say, okay, I hear you. Let me go and talk to mom and get her side of it. And then we'll talk together kind of thing to see kind of where we're at. Usually when you tell a kid that, they're like, wait, 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 wait. Hold on, hold on. So it's super important to make sure that you value that relationship because I would say your wife's perspective and take on things may be wildly different than what a 5 or 6 year old's trying to tell you in
Mm-hmm.
that same moment about the same thing. So it's really important to value that because it's going to come back in your parenting. It's going to come back in your relationship. It's going to come back in how your kids perceive their relationship with mom and dad. Because then they're going to start pitting you guys against each other. You'd be like, well, dad always takes my side, never takes mom's side, or mom takes my side before she takes dad's side. So I know I
Mm-hmm.
can get what I want if I do it this way. So that's why it's so important to take that relationship more, not more serious, but place more value on it, place more time and stuff into it that you can, and to build that because that's your foundation. That's your main support system as a parent, is the other parent that's in the
Yep.
home with you so that you can rely on them, trust them, ask them for things. They can be there for you emotionally, physically, mentally, all the things that you need them to be for you and that you also they want you to be for them, but you have to place value and honor that relationship because if you don't, then it's not going to happen and then you're going to get then all the things happen, negative things happen, divorce, all those
Yeah.
things happen later down the line. So that's kind of my take on it. um why that's important. I went off on a
Yeah.
tangent there.
No, you're good. You're good. I agree that you cannot ignore your partner relationship for your kids. Um, your job is to be the foundation of learning and love for your children. And in order to do that, you need to be a united front with your partner. And so it is a very different relationship, but they both need nurturing. So that's why it's essential, at least in my view, to make sure that you still have date nights, make sure that you still have romance, make sure that you tell your spouse or your partner that you love them, that you value them, that um, they are of utmost importance to you, of utmost importance. Um, Telling your kids that too, the reception is a little bit different, right? Because when a kid hears that, that helps to boost them up. It helps to give them confidence. It helps them to be comfortable with the unknown, with learning new things, trying new things, because they know that they have that support and that unconditional love from your parents, either from a single parent perspective or from a two parent household. Um, Two different relationships, both need nurturing. And where I think I would disagree with your point a bit on ranking them, I see it as we're all in this together, and it is very fluid. Because there are times when my kids will take priority. There are times when my wife will take priority. So I try to view it as less linear and more spatial, and just kind of move around, kind of like a sports leaderboard.
Definitely.
when
No,
they
I
play
like
games.
that. I've never really thought of it that way. Um, to be quite honest, is that it definitely does. It's definitely very fluid. For how it changes around. Like any time of day, the standings could change based on the
Yep.
game I just played. Um, and sometimes I need the standings to change. Sometimes maybe it's been too much kids and not enough spouse. So maybe I need more spouse. Now I
Yep.
need to change these rankings or vice versa. Maybe I have been too much spouse and now I need to do more. This is not gonna, I can't phrase that right. Spend more time with the kids
Yeah.
or move the kids up and whatnot. So it definitely is very fluid to how things are going to be. And
Yep.
it changes over time. It changes day to day. It changes with the thing. So no, I appreciate that take on it. I really do. I think it should be. I agree with you there. It should be more fluid and spatial versus so linear and cut and concrete.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's how life is. It is that fluid, ever changing, day to day kind of thing.
Yep.
Uh,
I think it's
which
important
kind
too not to lose sight of yourself in all that.
100%.
Like, if you don't focus on yourself and self care, if you don't love yourself, if you don't give yourself the time to heal, to rest, to recharge, what kind of a partner are you going to be? What kind of a parent are you going to be? So that's entering the mix too. Um, Adulting
100%.
is certainly challenging, especially when you add in relationships and children. But it's a juggling act. But we can all do it if we try to think about it from different perspectives.
All the gym bros just shut off the podcast because you said self care for men. Um, all the dudes just shut it off. But that's kind of one of the things that is so important to understand as a man is that you can't pour from an empty cup. You
Yep.
can't always keep giving when you have nothing to give. Because what you're giving at that point is mediocre at best. If you're not taking care of you, if you're not putting you into those priorities, if you're not
Mm-hmm.
putting you time, building you time into the day. And it's not about saying, well, I don't have the time. It's more saying, well, I have to make the time. I have to communicate that I
Mm-hmm.
need that time. So for you or for like us in our situations, it's more for me saying, "Hey, I need to go." For me, it would be I need to go and take an hour, and I need to go to the gym or something. Like that's gonna be my thing that I need to go and do. I need to communicate that. I need to be clear about it and say, "Hey, I need to go
Mm-hmm.
do this kind of thing." Or whatever that looks like for you. If it's like, "Hey, I need 20 minutes just to go and write about Bubba or
Yeah.
whatever it is. Like I just need 20 minutes uninterrupted. You got me? Cool. I'm
Yep.
gonna go lock myself in a room and cry and write about Bubba for 20 minutes. Whatever that looks like. And if you're thinking like, oh, there's no way I can do that, or no, gross, that's uncomfortable, you may have an issue, and there may be some conversations that we need to have with you about like gender norms and some toxic masculinity
Mm-hmm.
in that same conversation. Um, so for you, how is it balancing for you guys having a boy and a girl? Because for me, I have two girls, so it's pretty easy trying to break a lot of those like gender norms But for you guys in your home, you have a boy and a girl and a
Mm-hmm.
mom and a dad. Um, so how is it balancing all that? Because I'm sure Bubba sees mom doing some pretty cool things that maybe are more feminine and vice versa. Maybe BB sees you doing some cool things. Like you mentioned, she's kind of a daredevil, a little bit reckless. So how do you
Mm-hmm.
guys balance like teaching those gender norms and eliminating some of that early signs of like that toxic masculinity?
Yeah, great question. I think it started for us with like as simple as like color schemes and toys that they're playing with, where from a very early age, Bubba said that he liked pink. Okay, got him a pink shirt, right? You like purple, cool. He likes blue, he likes orange, he likes green. And then he hears from school boy colors and girl colors. And we put a stop to that right away and say they're colors. They don't have a gender. They're just colors. Like, what's your favorite color? Rainbow. Cool. Awesome. So we'll get you some rainbow stuff, right? And I know that socially that has, um, um, it's got ties to the LGBTQ plus community, and we are absolutely allies in our house. But that's not why we're buying it. That's not why we're getting it. Um, the idea that anything can be attributed to a specific gender, we've tried to put a stop to as best we can. If he wants to play with dolls, he can play with dolls. If she wants to play with trucks, she can play with trucks. Now she has gravitated towards dolls and playing with her babies, and that's totally fine. That's who she is as a person, right? Not because of her gender or her sex. We treat them as people at the end of the day. Don't treat him as a boy. Don't treat her as a girl. And that may be new age and a different way to parent and may upset people. Um, like to your point earlier, the gym bros, but that's okay. We're gonna raise our kids how we see best, right? We're doing what we think is best for them and creating a positive mental space for them to grow and flourish and learn and come into their own identity, whatever that is, because we love them as people, um, not anything else.
100%. And I think that's so important to give them the space to learn, to express, to be them, not have any narratives pushed on them. Like I had a coworker say like she's a single mom, uh she's part of the LGBTQ plus community now after having her son and whatnot, and she literally said that she refuses to raise another white man kind of thing, which is just like, okay, push your narratives a little harder on him, your ideology, your woke mindness kind of thing. Like, it's not, none of that's okay for kids. And then I heard another conversation going on about how, like, there was a teacher, and teachers should never push anything political, any political ideation on their students whatsoever in any form, shape, or way. The fact that it's okay to even do that is terrible. There should be
Mm-hmm.
no gender pushing, there should be no political pushing, there should be no ideology pushed in schools whatsoever. Uh, Critical race theory, all that stuff that's pushed or not pushed because it gives appropriate context to everything is ridiculous. Um, but they were talking about how a teacher was talking about how he's more right wing and talking about all these right wing like ideologies and whatnot, and how he doesn't want to get with the woke stuff and he doesn't believe in the woke stuff and things like that, and pushing it on the student, and these certain students were uncomfortable because their households are not with what he's talking about. And so, but in that same moment, I had the same thought. I'm not trying to get too political or anything, but it's more that maybe he should get with the woke stuff. Maybe he should subscribe to it. So if it was that side of it being pushed, there'd probably be no problems, be no issues or anything like that. Uh, but those kids now, they don't have a space to grow and be who they are. They don't get to choose for themselves. They're pushed these different ideologies and all these different things where they don't get to learn about them. They don't get to see both sides and be very
Mm-hmm.
open to both sides for what's going to be best for them. What are the benefits of this side versus this side? What are the good? Because there's good in all of it. You know, with being more woke, there is the side of it that, more accepting and open to different ideas, open mindedness, things like that. With, them being also being raised in church and going to church, they also see the good there as well, that it's important to have those spiritual aspects and to be a part of this different community and whatnot, and to see the good in that and to love people and to accept different people and whatnot. Uh, so it's so important to just expose our kids and let them freely choose to an extent for what and who they want to be and for why they want to be those things. And for us as parents to step back and just be like, okay, cool, that's your train. Let me hop on your train with you and ride with you. Let me
Mm-hmm.
go on this path with you and just support it. Uh, Let me just push you in the direction that you want to go, how you want to go, and things like that. So I think all those things are super important.
Mm-hmm.
That freely having space
Yep.
to learn and to become who they are. And it's not that you're pushing anything new age, really. I don't think so. Is that you're pushing things the same, not pushing it, but you're giving them the same space that you were given as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
which now is disagreed on and not as what's seen as best for kids, kind of thing. They should be given the narratives, taught and trained a certain way to think a certain way. Not your kids have openness to think and do as they want and learn and grow, and he's playing with dolls and she's playing with this and vice versa, and they're both playing babies together or whatever. It's like, well, that's a boy, kind of thing. Oh, obviously you need to push him more now in this way, or oh, obviously you guys subscribe to this narrative or this thing because you're letting your little boy wear rainbows and all that stuff. It's like, no, he just wanted to wear a freaking rainbow. Big
Yeah.
deal. He just likes rainbows. He thinks they're cool. He's
Mm-hmm.
fascinated by them. We watched a whole freaking documentary on rainbows on YouTube. Now he's obsessed with rainbows because he understands like the science of rainbows and things like that and how they work. And now he just thinks rainbows are really cool. But instead, he's going to go to school and get made fun of or teased or bullied or harassed because he's wearing a rainbow. And now adults are going to think that there's something going on and push a different narrative on him and make him feel a certain way. Other kids who know that rainbows are associated with this, it's like, oh, cool, kind of thing. It's going to be a whole thing when no, he just likes rainbows
Mm-hmm.
because rainbows are cool. So,
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Not to get too far into it either. He asks questions around, can boys marry boys and girls marry girls? And I'm just like, yes, they can. You know,
yeah.
and if that makes them happy, it makes them happy.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about trying to find that part that completes you,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that is. And it's our job as parents to make sure that they've got the safe guardrails so that they can learn safely.
100%. No, I love that. Um, let's let's talk a little bit about um, anxiety, because
Okay.
there's an aspect of fatherhood that brings a lot of anxiety, and a lot of it's not even anxiety in the moment. Of course, you've seen the videos of dad reflexes and all those things, but there's a lot of anxiety just like as a dad and a person, where it's like we're always thinking and worrying about the future for our kids.
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to have a good job? Are they going to have a good career? Are they going to meet someone that's going to really support them? Are they being nice to other kids at school? Are other kids being nice to them? Are all these things that are completely out of our control, we are worried about, we have nerves about, we think about and constantly worry about, because that's just kind of part of fatherhood, unfortunately. But
Mm-hmm.
we don't really talk about how that's anxiety and how that's out of our control and how we kind of just have to work through that. So tell me, what's kind of been your experience with anxiety and with that in relation to fatherhood or even personally,
Yeah.
how that's kind of affected you, not affected you, but made you more of who you are?
Yeah. Adding a wrinkle to
Adding a
who I am.
couple wrinkles,
Right.
exactly.
hmm so I've got a long storied history with anxiety. I was diagnosed with general anxiety disorder when I was a child. And it wasn't until I was an adult going through therapy that I started taking medication for it. And this predates obviously children. Um, and then having kids on top of it is just another reason why self care is so important. Because if you're not a foundation for them, then they don't have a foundation, right? You got to make sure that you're okay. Um, and so I'm a huge proponent of that self care aspect. Now, anxiety can present in many different ways. For me, it's I hyper focus on things, and I need to make sure that something is done before I can do something else. And I see it in my kids. I see it in Bubba in particular, where he will become fixated on something like finishing his magna tiles, or finishing a Lego set or a puzzle or whatever it is, before he either brushes teeth or eats or takes a bath or go to bed, that kind of thing. So that can cause a little bit of consternation. But it's important to recognize these generational aspects. And this is how I've been able to not only learn him, but see it in myself. Like he even made it more aware with me to learn that fixation about myself. Because a couple months ago, my mom was visiting, and BB was walking around without a sock, one sock. She was wearing one sock, didn't have a sock on the other foot, and she wouldn't let it go. She was like, "Where's your sock? Where's your sock? Let's find your sock. Let's put it on." And she mentioned sock no less than 10 times in 30 seconds. And so I'm like, all right, my mom is like that. My kid is like that. Holy cow, I'm like that too. And it is just very eye opening. The whole mental health aspect is very connected, in just who we are as individuals. Not even to say that it's opening the box of can of worms that is situational anxiety, where it's not innate, that it is driven by the environment, which certainly comes into play too. Um, so it's all trying to zoom out to zoom back in to see what you have focus on. How can I set up my kid for success? How can I make them a good person, and make sure that they feel loved and supported, all the while providing the life skills that they need further down the line. Getting caught up in thinking about, their education or their jobs or finding someone to love, later on in life is all important stuff. Don't get me wrong. But to your point earlier, I can't control where the future will lead them. All I can do is give them tools to be able to recognize in their life's journey what path to take, what decision to make, and who to associate with. So that doesn't give me so much anxiety. It's just the here and now, trying to focus on that.
100%. No, it's so true. And, being a mental health clinician myself, I work with a lot of kids who have a lot of anxiety. I diagnose kids with anxiety all the time, generalized anxiety disorder. And some kids barely have it. Some kids are very high on that spectrum. I've had little girls who are 7, 8 years old and nearly score as high as you can score for anxiety and whatnot. And kids are just, and before I get into that, a lot of these things are hereditary. They are passed. There's more and more psychological studies coming out that it's very likely if you have a certain, depression, anxiety, mood disorders, different things like that, it's going to be passed down. Uh, if you and your partner both have it, it's more that your child's more than likely also going to have it. They are hereditary because that's if you're having it and you're struggling with it, it's going to become part of your DNA And guess what? You pass that DNA into your child. Uh, so it just kind of makes scientific sense in that aspect. But uh, kids are filled with so much anxiety these days because of narratives that are pushed in media. Uh, Media is terrible for kids. I have decided myself that I'm not going to really let my kids on social media until they're probably teenagers and in high school, to where they can emotionally handle it,
Mm-hmm.
emotionally handle having a phone and all that fun stuff. Um, and doing those things unmonitored, more unsupervised and whatnot. Even then, I'm debating maybe when they're an adult, um, kind of thing. But I don't want to shelter them too much or anything at the same time. But that's a whole nother
Yeah.
thing. But kids are filled with so much anxiety because there's so much unknown in their world. Uh, and some kids are filled with way more because their unknowns are: am I going to eat tonight? Are my basic needs going to be met? Am I going to come home and is mama going to be okay? Or mama could be an addict, dad could be an addict, dad could be in and out, dad could be abusive. Maybe there's DV going on at home. Maybe there's a lack of food, basic needs, safety. None of those are being met. Am I going to have clean clothes to wear tomorrow, or am I going to get made fun of for smelling bad again? Do we even have enough money to go to the laundromat? Kids are more and more aware of these things than we think they are, of the
Mm-hmm.
external circumstances and environmental things going on. So kids are battling a lot of anxiety, and then you put them in school with other kids, and kids are pretty mean. I'm not gonna lie, I get bullied by kids all the time at home. Um, and then of course, then they go to school, and then they are subject to it because we're not raising nice. Not everyone's raising a nice child. We don't. There's not enough cohesion among us parents uh, to raise a nice, decent, kind human being. That's it. Raise them to be
Mm-hmm.
kind and nice to other people. They're going to be a crazy productive member of society because they're just going to be nice. People are going to
Mm-hmm.
gravitate to them. Opportunities are going to gravitate to them because they're nice. They're hardworking. They're kind. People are going to gravitate to them. The right people are going to gravitate to them. But if you're raising a little poopy butt, then guess what they're going to attract? They're going to attract that negativity. They're going to attract the
Mm-hmm.
wrong people in their life. It's all going to be negative and really bad for them because you raised a terrible human being. Uh, and there's no really sugarcoating it. It's like if your kid grows up to be a butt, well, that probably is going to reflect on you quite a bit. Of course, you can't control your kids' choices, whether they do drugs, whether they're an addict or anything like that, unless you were the one giving it to them. Totally different thing. But kids are going to learn and do the things that they saw and were taught, essentially, or not taught, but just saw and picked up on.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so if there's DV in the home, guess what they're probably going to learn to do? If there's all these different things in the home or whatever's going on in the home, that's probably how they're going to be. But if they're coming from a situation where mom and dad are really nice to each other and they get along and they communicate really well and they set that example and they model like really good regulation and they model these communication skills, they model coping, they model taking time for yourself, they model love and discipline and respect and kindness and working hard. If all those traits are modeled for your kid, I would say probably 80% of the time, of course, 80/20 rule, that your kid's probably going to turn out to be a pretty dope human being, more or less. Uh,
Yeah.
so I just think it's so important keeping that mindset too. Like, you model what you want your kid to be. You are what you want your kid to be. So if you're an ass, then, well, don't be surprised if you're getting calls from school saying that your kid's a butt and a bully or terrible or whatnot. Because I wonder where they got it from. Maybe it's time to point the finger inwards. But that kind of gets us off topic there. But this anxiety, it's so real and it looks so many different ways, kind of like you were saying. Your mom, you like obsessed over like a sock. Like, oh my gosh, put a sock on, put a sock on, put a sock on. And it's really hard to let those things go. But we really have to take the perspective at the same time when it comes to anxiety, realizing like, am I in control of the situation? Can I control it? is it really worth the reaction or the energy I could give it kind of thing? Being able to self-reflect in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I so anxious about this? Can I control it? Is it worth the energy that it could be given? And we really have to be able to self-assess in the moment. Like, well, if she's just wearing one sock, but she's in a carpeted room, probably not that big of a deal. But if our house is mostly hardwood and whatnot, maybe I want to grab her and throw her sock on kind of thing. Or maybe it's the summertime and she's walking in and out. Okay, maybe she does want to have that sock on kind of thing. Really trying to bring it back to that logic, that logical
Mm-hmm.
place the best you can in that moment. It's like, is it that big of a deal? Eh, I'm
Yeah.
gonna let that one go. And then it comes back to picking your battles and
Yep.
knowing your kids. It's like, well, she's kind of wild. It's just a sock. We're not going anywhere. Eh, there's worse things. She could be naked.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
it's all about perspective and kind of keeping in that light. Can I control it? Is it worth the energy? And is it really that big of a deal? Kind of thing. So and with
Yep.
anxiety, it can definitely feel like a bigger deal than it really is. That's why it's
Yep.
important to self-reflect in the moment and to can I control it? Probably not. She's probably just gonna take that sock off again. And I'm just overplaying that example because it's the
No, of course.
example that we are thinking of. But it's like, if I put it back on, it's probably gonna cause a bigger tantrum and a fight. She's probably happy. Her foot's probably fine.
Yep.
Not that deep. I'm gonna let it go. We're gonna move on. Maybe, and then that's a whole nother conversation. Like, Mom, it's okay. It's just a sock. It's okay. Giving her that reassurance, like she's fine. It's just a sock. Just be glad she's not butt naked right now.
Yeah.
Uh,
Take it
I
to the
mean,
extreme.
yeah, take it to that extreme sometimes, and sometimes we have to for our own parents. Like, hey, this really isn't that bad. This is good.
Yeah.
This is good. And we're just gonna roll with it and trying to give our parents reassurance, and that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But anything else you want to add on to that conversation?
No, sometimes it's good just to take the other sock off too. You know?
True. Make it even. Make it even. Make both the feet cold.
Yeah. That's right.
Bodies will adjust, and then she'll be like, "Well,
That's right.
where's my socks? Let me go put them on myself." It'll click in her brain. Who knows? But
Yep.
uh, we're running a little bit long here, so we're gonna jump into the YDP three. The YDP
Okay.
three are three questions that I ask every guest, just to end us kind of on a philosophical high, if you will, in short. So don't think too deeply about it at all at the same time. First question here is where you're rooted. Kind of what makes up the innermost workings of Mr. Matt. Values, all those things. What different things mean to you? Where are your roots? What makes up the innermost workings of Matt?
Great question. I would say love, support, literacy. If you can have those things, then you can provide that foundation for your kid to feel supported, feel like they're part of something, and then feel like they have that hunger for learning. Um, and books and being able to read opens all the doors.
I love that. That's a huge one. Reading does open so many doors, and that literacy piece opens all the doors. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
that's 100% true. Next question is what grounds you? So when you're feeling, I like to phrase this one, you're feeling all stressy and depressy, or maybe anxiousy too. What kind of brings you down? What grounds you? How do you get through those moments?
Breathing and remembering that I have that support within my own home. My wife, my kids, my dog, who's been sitting on my lap for the last hour to a degree. And that when I'm going through a hard time, I try to picture myself in the future and think, okay, is this going to matter in 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 years? If the answer is no, then logically you could try to trick your brain into thinking that everything is fine. Otherwise, it's a thought exercise that distracts you. So, either way, I feel like it's helpful to think that way.
Definitely. No, that's so important. I like what you said there at the end, like a thought exercise to distract you. Also just shifting your mindset at that same time really can help in that moment as well. The last one here, um, my last question. Okay, last one here is, let's say we're at the park. You're at the park with your kids. I'm at the park with my kids. We don't know each other. I see you from across the way, and you're smiling. You look really happy, adjusted. I look over at you, and so then I approach you. You can tell this guy's he's he's vibing low. He's not. He looks very stressy and depressy. He looks very tired. He looks really down in the dump. And I come sit next to you, and I'm just like, I don't know how you're doing it, man. I'm not there. I'm probably lower than I ever been. And in that moment, I'm just like, what's your secret sauce? What's your secret recipe to what you got going on? So you get to tell me maybe 1.5 pieces of advice to really give me a little boost, get me going there.
Every day you start fresh. Every single day is an opportunity to be who you want to be. And I say that at the end of my episodes of my podcast is you get to be exactly who you want to be. And so that really helps to set the mindset of, do I want to be somebody who, I mean, in that situation is unable to handle that? And if you can try to think, I want to be somebody who can handle this, I aspire to a certain level of dadding, then it's, if you can think it, you can do it, and you can try to actualize it. It's not as simple as just like wishing it into existence. It's a matter of kind of like an internal vision board, right? If you will, to say, this is kind of my goal. And if you can use that as your North Star, then you can get there, just knowing that you don't have to do it all at once. Every day is different. Every day you start fresh.
I love that. Well, Matt, thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, um, and all that we were able to talk about today. We got into some great topics there. Go ahead and tell the people a little bit about where they can find more of you at.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jay. I appreciate you having me on. My podcast, Mr. Matt's Storytime, is available on all major streaming channels. I host on Spotify, and I'm available on Apple, Amazon Music, Podbean, iHeartRadio. Really anywhere. Just you can Google it and find it wherever you stream. Come along the journey with me. I've got kids' stories that teach good lessons, and through interactive and imaginative storytelling, and it's a very wholesome place. I try to curate, but also try to put in some tidbits into each episode for the parents to kind of get a smirk out of them, so that there's something there for them too.
100%. Well, Matt, thank you so much for your time. It's much appreciated. We're already connected outside of this, so we'll keep talking, but it's been a pleasure getting to talk to you more in this kind of setting. So,
Likewise, Jay. Thanks for having me on.